You're listening to the Sales Success Stories podcast, where we deconstruct world-class sales performers to provide insights and strategies to help you improve. To learn more, visit us at top1.fm. Here's your host, Scott Ingram.
Today on the Sales Success Stories podcast, my guest is Jeremy Leveille, who just became the team lead of sales development at LeadIQ, because before that, he was their top senior sales development representative. Welcome to the show, Jeremy.
Thank you very much, Scott. Happy to be here.
Yeah, and a big shout out to Ryan O'Hara, who is the VP of Marketing at LeadIQ, for connecting me with Jeremy. Ryan just had me on his show, the Prospecting Podcast, and I'll put a link to that show in the show notes at top1.fm/55, because this is episode 55, where you can go check that out. But Ryan said some pretty amazing things about you, Jeremy, and I believe you were also just named the SDR of the Year at David Dulany's Sales Development Conference, right?
That's correct. Yeah, it's a good honor to have, because I think I read a statistic, there's around like 8,000 at this point, maybe even more of, SDRs, BDRs, whatever you want to call it, business development or account development representatives. So pretty cool to win that award as the top one.
That's fantastic. And there was also something about 69 meetings in 1 month. So lots to look forward to and lots to talk about. But we're going to start like we always do, Jeremy, with the top 3 things that you believe have contributed most to your success as an SDR.
Sure. Yeah. So I think number one, in really embracing the role of an SDR, BDR, sales development representative, embracing the role, embracing prospecting itself, and, not just seeing it as a stepping stone role that, I'm just going to come in and try to just like do the job because it's just this low level role, and then, try to just get it to account executive role as fast as I can. Like, no, I actually enjoy this. I put in a lot of time and effort into perfecting the craft. So I think that's like number one. Number two, building a personal brand and really being immersed in my industry, trying to learn as much as I can and network as much as I can with other people in the industry and share, that content that I find when I'm learning, share it with prospects and other people to try to like become really well known and be seen as like an expert or thought leader in the space that I'm in. And then number three is just like the quality of the outreach over the quantity. A lot of people that are doing the job of SDR, BDR, they're told to do 100 calls a day, 100 emails a day, and it's more about the numbers and the metrics than actually what you're saying to these people and who are you targeting and what is the messaging you're using, to me, is the most important thing. So your actual quality of outreach is going to result in people actually responding to you, because it's so easy for people to ignore these cold calls and ignore the cold emails.
Yeah. Well, talk about that a little bit more. What do you measure? What is the metric that you look at and think about?
The biggest things to me is meetings booked, but not necessarily meetings booked because they have to actually happen. If people are, if you book 20 meetings and then like 15 of them no show, then it's like, what are you doing? So meetings booked, but more importantly, meetings that actually occurred that you set, for your account executives, that's one big metric. And then the other one that is equally important to me is not just the number of, meetings that you're booking as an SDR, but what is the quality of those meetings? And are they actually moving forward in the sales process? Do they do that? Do you book? You booked 20 demos, but then nothing happened. None of them were closed deals. Like, they did the demo and then that's it. So are those deals, are those opportunities that you're sourcing, are they resulting in closed won deals? Are they moving forward in the sales process? And also, if they are closed won deals, are they moving forward? What is the deal size? If all 20 out of those 20 meetings are moving forward and they all close, but they're all tiny deals that aren't going to really move the needle. They're all just like, one-seaters. Then what are you doing? So all of that together is what I think is more important. Number of meetings that are actually happening, and then the revenue that's being generated as a result, not just, deal sizes as well. So that's to me the most important thing.
So it sounds like really more the contribution to the total pipeline, which makes so much sense, right? I'd much rather take one really great, well-qualified meeting with an opportunity that's worth, $200,000 in annual revenue versus 5 meetings that are worth $10K a piece. That I'm just is probably the same amount of work for way less output.
Exactly. So, I think being able to really see the big picture there and being able to see, the revenue, be very, revenue driven, as opposed to just, like a robot that's trying to just, do 100 calls, 100 emails a day and just book some meetings. It's just a different mindset.
Yeah, for sure. Well, we'll spend a lot of time talking about sort of the specifics of how you're doing a lot of this stuff and how you're structuring things. But before we go there, I mean, I'd love to just get a little bit of backstory and understand how you initially got your start in sales.
Sure. Yeah. So I'll try to not have it be too long because I'm 32, definitely a little bit older than most people that are BDRs. Kind of what a lot of people think the perception is that, they're all 22, 23-year-old kids coming out of college. When I was going to college, I was going for sportscasting. I wanted to be a broadcaster. Obviously, Scott, you have a really good, radio voice. And, that's what I wanted to do was get on the air, do broadcasting. I did an internship at a radio station when I was in college, but all the work there was, not much work for production and getting on the air. So I noticed that more to actually contribute more to the radio station was on the sales side. So I picked up the phone and I was helping out the sales reps there. I was making some cold calls. They were telling me I was making more cold calls than their actual reps, their actual account executives. And they gave me more responsibility to, put on some events for them and make some cold calls. So that's when I started to actually figure out, I was actually started pretty good at sales. So that's kind of where I got my start. And I've done sales development, biz development at a couple different companies. One was an outsourced third-party company that, a bunch of different tech companies outsourced their sales development function to them. That's where I started to actually do, the work of a BDR. So I was a BDR there, then promoted to team lead, then went to a different company called Navisite, was a BDR there for 13 months. Then they moved me into a channel manager role, managing reseller and referral partners. And now I'm at LeadIQ, where I've been since February and, been there as an SDR and now team lead for the SDR team.
That's fantastic. I talk a lot about on this show. I consider myself to be an intentional individual contributor. It sounds like you are an intentional SDR.
Yeah, I guess so, and I mean, I'm of the opinion that, SDR, everybody thinks that you have to get promoted to AE I kind of feel like SDR, AE, and, or like a sales manager, they're all kind of equal, because you don't necessarily want to promote your best SDR to be a manager, your best sales rep to be a manager, because it's different skills. It's more of the leadership skills and motivating skills for being a sales manager. Not necessarily mean that one's better than the other or one is actually a promotion than the other. And different skills from SDR to AE as well. So I think LeadIQ, we kind of consider them all to be equals. We're all just equals, even though a lot of people, the perception is that, SDR, is a low level role, but, I embrace it. I really enjoy prospecting. Just yesterday, I was here in the office until 10:30 at night, and it wasn't oh, geez, I'm working this late. It didn't even seem like work to me. It was more like fun, So it's I still have hobbies, but it doesn't seem like work because it's more fun for me.
Yeah, great stuff. Now, if you were starting all of that over again, is there anything that you would do differently?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I graduated college in 2008, when the economy was, not doing so well during the economic crisis. So, and I also didn't really have the business acumen that I do now, the sales skills, the people skills that I do now. So I think, the maturity that I do now. So, I think the one thing I would do over again would be that first 3 to 5 years after college, when I was just kind of didn't really know what I wanted to do when I was bouncing around and I didn't have the maturity or, the business acumen, sales skills and people skills that I do now. I would have probably tried to try to streamline that process a little bit in the first 3-5 years out of college, get those skills and learn the stuff that I was able to learn much later on down the road. So then I'd probably be further ahead, now than I am, but what are you going to do?
Sure.
It is what it is.
And is there something that you would have had immature Jeremy do in his early 20s, right, to build a foundation that would be helpful for you today?
Yeah, I mean, I think one thing I probably would have done, when I was in college, would have been, I was a communication major because, like I said, I wanted to do sportscasting. I probably would have done, business major instead to at least get some of that foundational, skill set and, business acumen so that when I got out of college, I, would have had some more direction in what I was going to do. Also, I was pretty like just socially awkward when I was in college. And so my people skills weren't as good. I wasn't as confident on the phone, actually making sales calls and stuff. And so I wasn't as good, at sales when I was first coming out of college, because I wasn't as good with people. And so, I would have done some things differently, tried to, get out more, be more sociable. One thing that helped me a lot socially was when I started to just get out more and socialize with people in real life and get more comfortable and confident actually talking to people, in real life. I would start up conversations with the person, in line at the grocery store or at the laundromat, like anywhere I go, just talking to people and, going to bars and just starting conversations with strangers. I started to do that not until I was like 27, started to get more comfortable and confident out in social situations, took that comfort and confidence with me onto the phone when I started to do business development work just in the past few years. But if I had, started that process a little bit earlier, then that would have probably helped as well.
Yeah, there you go. Now, before I have Jeremy talk about his results, I wanted to remind you to go grab your copy of the Sales Success Stories book if you haven't already. We're getting such great feedback on it. The book features 60 stories from 20 top 1% sales professionals like Jeremy. And all of these stories were written specifically for the book, and they're so good. I can't recommend the audiobook enough because you'll actually get to hear each of the contributors reading their own stories in their own words. You'll find the links to the book on Audible, Amazon, and everywhere else, including a special offer if you go to top1.fm/book. That's top1.fm/book. All right, Jeremy, let's talk about these results. And I want to hear about these 69 meetings in a month. So kind of walk us through the journey at LeadIQ and what you've done there.
Sure. Yeah. So, shameless plug. Obviously, I'm not going to pitch the product, very much here, but using the product at LeadIQ definitely helps. It is a tool that is built for SDRs and to make them more efficient and productive. So actually using LeadIQ has helped. But also, it was just like my second full month here and, just being more comfortable and confident with the product. I just felt like a big part of it is confidence in the product and understanding what the value is and being able to understand what the value is of what you're selling, and B, being able to have that confidence and know how to actually convey what the messaging should be and how you should actually convey that value to your prospects and buyers. I was able to, the light bulb just kind of went on. It just kind of hit me. There was that ramp time of the first 3 or 4 weeks when I was still kind of figuring out, okay, what do we even do? How are we different than some of our competitors? Who should I be reaching out to? What should I be saying? But then the light bulb went off after the first 3 or 4 weeks, and I was like, oh, I got it. This is exactly why somebody would buy from us, and this is why we're different from our competitors. And then as I started to use that messaging and have more people responding positively to it via calls, emails, LinkedIn, then I was able to iterate and then be like, okay, these things that I'm saying aren't working. These things that I'm saying are working. And then just kind of get better and better as I was going. And also we went to an event, the AAISP Leadership Summit, and had a booth there. So 20 of those 69 meetings were from that event. So they were semi-warm leads, they weren't really inbound because they didn't come to our website and fill out a form, but they were people that came to our booth and I treated it like a cold call. They came to our booth at this trade show and, I had to just look at their badge, figure out who they were, what company they're with, what their role was at that company, what our value might be, and just ask them some discovery questions and qualify them and generate some interest. And 10 of those 20, I booked with them right there at the booth. So they came to the booth and then, there was enough interest there that I just pulled up the calendar on my laptop right there at the booth and booked the meetings right there. And then the other 10, I had to follow up with them after the event. But, I think that's a big part of business acumen is a lot of BDRs wouldn't be able to really think on their feet like that. If you're just sitting at a computer, you're able to look the person up on LinkedIn. You're able to do some research on the company, formulate a message that might get them to respond. They reply to your email and you're able to take your time to craft a, response and do some research to figure out how you want to respond to them. But when you're in real life, when you're in person, at a trade show, you got to think on your feet. It's happening in real time. So you really have to have the business acumen to figure out, this company's in the healthcare industry and they sell an ERP system. So this is what I would say to them. and they use, Salesforce instead of HubSpot CRM. So I would say this instead. So that was a big part of it as well.
Well, and there's a couple of things about that I think are really important. I mean, one, the fact that you were booking meetings in real time, right? You weren't waiting for, because I feel like events in particular, it is so hard to convert that excitement that's happening in the moment and when you're having that conversation to now I'm trying to get a meeting when they met 50 other people at that event and we're equally excited about that. And now they've got this mountain of work they're trying to catch up on because they've been out of the office for days or a week or whatever it was. So but let's get a little bit more granular. Talk about what is that opening question? How are you starting that? And then how are you taking that all the way through to making sure that you're getting that meeting on the spot?
Yeah. So, one thing that helps is that, our product isn't super technical or complex. So I basically, when they're at the booth, it's like the first 30 to 60 seconds is, kind of qualifying it, gauging their interest level and A, how interested they are, and B, how much do they even know about what we do and stuff. And then from there, if I'm able to pique their interest a little bit, we have the laptop right there on the table at the booth. So I'm able to just give them a really sneak peek preview. I'm not going to demo the product right there, but a little bit, like a little mini, demo of how the tool works to at least get them a little bit more interested. And then they're like, oh, geez, wow, that's really cool that you can do that. And I'll usually, go on that person's LinkedIn profile and use LeadIQ to show them we can get their cell phone number and email address with one click, put it into SalesLoft and Salesforce. And then they're like, whoa, no way, that's really cool. And so being able to kind of show them a little bit, but not too much, still keeping them intrigued and interested helped a lot too.
Awesome. And then, I mean, just to get super specific though, what's the opening? What's the first question you're asking?
Yeah. So I usually make it specific to their company. So if they are with, say they're with Staples, the office supplies. And, I'll just say, hey, I know you guys are a really big company. Like you're in charge of their, inside sales team. Like I make it about them. Like, what are you here at the conference for? I might say something like that, or, how is your team doing as far as, how much time are they spending like on manual data entry, manually trying to find prospects and who they should reach out to? Just kind of keep it open-ended, keep it light, not like overly salesy. I'm not just diving in like really aggressive, trying to like pitch them anything. Just trying to say, hey, how's your team doing? Like, what are you guys running into? And just keep it really light and conversational.
Nice. That's great stuff. So back to the numbers. So you had 1 month that you set these 69 meetings. What did the rest of the year look like? What else are you doing?
Yeah. So my next best month after that was 57 meetings in 1 month. And then I had a couple other months where I had like 47, 45, 48. I think the lowest month that I've had since I've been here was like 41 or maybe 38 or something. Some of the ones in the beginning when I had like 69 or 57, few of them, like maybe 5 or 10 per month, were inbound. So they were people that were a little bit more of a warm lead where, they filled out a form on our website or something, or they chatted with our chatbot on Drift or something like that, or, called the phone number that we have on our website. And then I just qualified them and booked a meeting from there. So in the past couple months, it's only been more like 40 or 45 because now we have somebody that's taking over all the inbound stuff and I'm just doing outbound. But yeah, that's what it's been like. I mean, they thought the goal for an SDR here at LeadIQ should be 15 outbound meetings per month. So I'm kind of doing like 300% of that, like, the production of 3 BDRs. So now they're trying to figure out like, what am I doing? How can we replicate this? So I'm putting together a playbook for what I've been doing so that the other reps that we have can try to kind of, not mirror it exactly, but, it'll provide at least a guide for them to go off so they can try to, emulate that success a little bit.
Well, that's perfect. You teed me up exactly right, because I wanted to really dig into, okay, like walk us through the steps. So what does that playbook look like? How are you structuring it? What are the pieces? How do you make this happen?
Yeah, so, I put pen to paper on the playbook and I'm still trying to make it like more organized. Like or, my number one weakness is probably organization. Like I kind of am like a mad scientist with just like, and I kind of just like wing it when I'm reaching out to prospects. Like I don't know, I don't have like everybody in the same cadence of, okay, these are all the people I'm going to call today and email today. And then, I call them today. If they don't respond, then I'm going to email them again on Thursday. Like that is my number one weakness, is like actually having that structure nailed down in that process. Like I'm more just kind of like, I live on LinkedIn. I see somebody I want to reach out to. I call them, I book the meeting, or I email them. And like usually because the targeting and the messaging is so good that I'm not having to put people into a cadence of, 10, 11, 15, 20 steps. And then finally they respond or something, or, after the 20th email, they finally get back to you and say, call me in 6 months or something. Like usually the targeting and the messaging is so good that they're responding within like 2 or 3, maybe 4 touches tops between call and email and LinkedIn. And also having like a good personal brand really helps, because I've somehow been able to get pretty well known in the space, and to the point where I don't really have to make a lot of cold calls, because the people I'm reaching out to, I'm already connected to them on LinkedIn. I've already chatted with them on LinkedIn. They've already engaged with some of my posts. I literally right now have, I think, 216 connection invitations on my LinkedIn, people that are connecting with me. I can't even keep up with all of them to accept them. And like 90% of them are people that could be, good prospects for me at LeadIQ. So building that brand is definitely part of the playbook. And I've put some stuff in the playbook, an actual like how to build a personal brand and how to do social selling starting from scratch. So I can kind of dive into that really like quick, if you want.
Yeah, we're gonna turn this into a seminar rather than an interview. So, no, I definitely want to get into those things. But first, you talked about the first ingredient there was the targeting. So what does the targeting look like? Because I'm sure that's an important ingredient.
Yep, definitely. Most important is like targeting and messaging, to me when being a successful BDR. Targeting is just knowing, A, what type of account should you be reaching out to, what type of company, and B, what person at that company, what persona, and it's just knowing that and knowing how to find those people, so like for us, it's SaaS companies, computer software companies that, have inside sales teams of at least 10 reps. And, generally it's going to be between 50 to 5,000 employees. And we do well in the US as well as overseas in EMEA. So pretty much anywhere geographically, North America or EMEA. And the personas, director, VP, manager of sales operations, revenue operations, marketing operations, or director, VP, of sales development, business development, maybe a VP of sales, so you have kind of different, that's the targeting, figuring out the right types of accounts. And also, who do they sell to? Like knowing, are they B2B? Like do they sell to banks? Do they sell to hospitals? Do they sell to people that we would have good contact information data for? That's the targeting piece.
Cool. And then on to messaging, if that's the second biggest component, what does that look like?
Yeah, so it's just being able to know, okay, that's who I'm reaching out to, that account and that person at that account. Well, now what the hell am I going to say to them? So just knowing when you get them on the phone, what are you going to say? In the email, what are you going to say that's actually going to get them to respond and want to book a meeting? So one of the things with messaging that I try to do is my messaging is very informal. As you probably can tell, I don't talk really, overly corporate and formal and professional. I think a lot of the template emails that like there's all these bots and automation and AI and stuff that are blasting out a lot of these template emails, or it might just be like marketing department puts together, these template emails for their SDRs to blast out. They always look so like, it's like people don't talk that way. When I see these templates, it's like way too formal. You'll see a cold email from an SDR that starts out with, dear Bob, and then
you're off from word one, right?
Yeah, and at the end it has sincerely or regards or best wishes or something, and our product does blah 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 blah. It just seems like it's like people don't talk that way. So one thing with my language, it's more informal, and then also it's very concise. I try to have all my like emails be very concise, right to the point, and be very direct and specific. And really, I don't sugarcoat anything or beat around the bush. Like when I'm in my email messaging or calls, whatever it is, calls, emails, LinkedIn, I'm very direct and specific with who LeadIQ is, why they should demo us, what our value is. And I don't beat around the bush. I beat them over the head with it. I'm very obvious about, because the reason why I do this is because these prospects get so many calls, they get so many emails, like it's insane. Like the prospect that I'm sending that email to, they're getting 100 other emails. And especially if they're a director of sales operations, like there's graphics that people have, done studies in like the number of sales and marketing technologies that exist right now. Like the market is at an all-time high for how saturated it is. So this person I'm sending this email to, we have great data for blah, 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 blah. Like there's 50 other companies that are all sending, an email about that. So people are so busy with meetings. They're getting lots of different emails. When they're reading that email that they're getting from me, just like if they're doing a demo with us, they're getting emails and they're getting Slack messages. They're in the middle of like 10 different projects. They're doing so many different things. Their mind's in 10 different places. So I try to be very specific and direct, and I beat them over the head with what the value is that we have. So that's part of the messaging as well, is being very obvious with it. And one way I do that is with screenshots. Oftentimes, most of my emails are not just words. They're not just text. I'll have screenshots of maybe some of our customers that, they maybe like said something on LinkedIn, or they said something in an email or something, they saying how great our tool is and how much success they're having with it. I'll take a screenshot of that and maybe just blur out their name and drop that into emails. So then it looks better. It's not just me saying how great we are. It's our customer saying it. I have a bunch of these different screenshots that I've come up with based on like people that have said different things about our tool and the success they've had with it. And I'll just kind of drop those in, or, maybe I'll screenshot some of the data that we have on the people that their sales team actually reaches out to, so they can actually see the visual of it right there. It's not just me saying how great it is. I'm actually showing them. So that's part of, what goes into the messaging.
That's fantastic. Now, as far as channel goes, right? So you're talking about emails there, you're using LinkedIn, I know you're using the phone. What do you find converts the best?
Yeah, I really believe in multi-channel, multi-prospect, and multi-touch, So I'm reaching out to more than one prospect at a company, for one. I'm reaching out to, it's multi-channel, so phone, email, LinkedIn. But to answer your question, I think more of my meetings are getting booked over email, but it's all this, like, it's all three channels working together, because like I think if somebody is more likely to respond to my email if they also just listen to the voicemail that I sent them, and if they're also connected to me on LinkedIn. Oftentimes I'm reaching out to somebody because I saw that they posted something on LinkedIn. So the subject line of my email says your post. I'm not going to just put for the subject line your LinkedIn post, because I could just put that they could read that and be like, oh, they're putting that for anybody. I'll put your post about X, like specifically what was it about, and then in the email I'll even screenshot their post, so it's really direct and obvious. I'll screenshot their post, and so I kind of incorporating their LinkedIn post into the email. Or I'm reaching out to somebody who viewed my LinkedIn profile, or they liked my LinkedIn post. So it's kind of all of them are being worked in there together, or I'll say in the voicemail that I leave them, I'll say that I'm going to send you an email. So they're more likely to kind of respond. So it's really, a strategic use of all three channels, and multi-touch as well. Like I'm not going to just give up if the first one or two emails that I sent somebody, they didn't respond. I'm going to try again 2 or 3 days later. Sometimes it takes, 5, 6, 7 touches before they respond, but usually it's within 2 or 3, maybe 4 touches if the targeting and the messaging is good enough before they'll respond.
Right. And then that goes back to your, quality versus quantity. You're spending just a little bit of extra time doing that extra personalization, putting in the screenshots. And it sounds like most of those screenshots are about them, which most people find fascinating.
Yep, exactly. Yeah, and like, I'll come up with other little things to kind of personalize it about, it might just be, sometimes I'll do videos for people. I do a lot of videos, and the videos are personalized to that person. I'll do songs. I have a guitar here in the office, and I'll just play the guitar. And I think part of the reason why these songs that I'm making are getting such a high response rate, like I'll do rap songs where I do like freestyle raps, and I also play guitar songs. I think like at one point, out of 10 songs that I made people, like 9 of them booked meetings. Like it's insane, the response rate. But I think with the guitar songs, like they get such a kick out of it because I don't even know how to play the guitar. So they think it's hilarious. Like I just literally we did a demo for a company, I won't say who it is, obviously. We did a demo for a company, earlier today, where the cold email that I sent was a guitar song, and I'll put in the subject line, they're more likely to respond to my email and open it, because in the subject line I put made a rock video for you, Doug, or whatever their name is. Like, who's not going to open that? And then I just put, hey Doug, made you this cool rock video, and then bam, there's the video using Vidyard. And they get a kick out of it, because I don't even know how to play the guitar, but I have this guitar. It's my girlfriend's guitar, and I do a song. It'll be always less than 60, maybe 90 seconds tops. But I sent this to this one guy, and then he replies, and he's like, "This is effing hilarious. Just forwarded it on to my entire SDR team. We started using Vidyard, but they're not having that much success with it. But I see that you can help me with blah blah blah, and you're different than what I have now because blah blah blah." Like, I literally, all I sent him was a song, but he was able to piece together what my value prop was and how we could help his team and what we integrate with, because I was kind of mentioning, it was kind of like a pitch in the song, but I didn't even write it. It's not like I took like 20, 30 minutes to write out lyrics and write out notes and stuff. Like, I just did it off the top of my head, and, I'm able to kind of do this song and shoot it in less than 2 minutes and then send it. Like, a lot of SDRs are probably taking more time than that, to just write an actual text email. So it's not taking that much time. I'm still able to kind of scale it and still reach out to a lot of people each day.
That is, I was going to call out at the beginning of that. I'm like, okay, well, you've obviously got some talent as a musician. What about the rest of us? But what you're saying is you have none of that. You're just chucking stuff out there and having fun with it. And that's getting people's attention.
Yep. And another thing like that I do is part of my brand is like I have a collection of NBA throwbacks. Like, a lot of the videos that I post on LinkedIn.
I've seen that.
I'm wearing throwback jerseys. And so, like, for example, if I'm sending a video to somebody in the Atlanta area, I'll wear my Atlanta Hawks Dominique Wilkins throwback jersey in the video. If I'm sending a video to a prospect that's in Chicago, I'll wear my Michael Jordan throwback jersey. And at one point, like, I sent a bunch of videos to prospects in the Atlanta area, and I was able to kind of scale it. I literally sent the same video to like 40 prospects, where it wasn't like anything about LeadIQ. It was just literally me playing the song "Welcome to Atlanta" by Ludacris for 30 seconds, and I was just like wearing my Atlanta Hawks Dominique Wilkins throwback jersey and just like lip syncing the words to the song for 30 seconds. And I sent that, and obviously I didn't just send that. I mean, I didn't. I put like a 1 or 2 sentence value prop about who LeadIQ is and how we could maybe help their team. And the response rate was insane. Like, literally, everybody booked a meeting. So, I try to just be creative and have fun with it.
That's fantastic. And we are going to load the show notes with a bunch of examples of these so we can sort of help people understand what this really looks like in the real world. So I'll work with Jeremy on getting a bunch of those going. If you go to top1.fm/55 or top one, I don't think I've talked to another Jeremy yet. So top1.fm/Jeremy, that'll get you there too. And we'll pull that all together. That'll be a lot of fun. I cut you off a long time ago and we were talking about the playbook, and you were about to talk about kind of building that personal brand from scratch. What does that look like? What are the ingredients? What are you recommending that people do so that they have more visibility and people are able to kind of connect with them in this way?
Sure. So I break it up into 3 parts. Like, if you're starting from zero and you have no personal brand, like you're not really posting that much stuff on LinkedIn, here's what I recommend people to do. Your first 1 or 2 months at the company, just observe. Don't post anything. Just observe. Just observe what people are posting on LinkedIn, and don't connect with a ton of people. Just follow. If you see a prospect that you're like prospecting, don't connect with them, because they're just gonna they're gonna see that you sent them an email like 5 minutes ago, or you just left them a voicemail. They're gonna see you sent them a connection request. This is just like, they're just gonna be like, all right, this is just some SDR trying to prospect me. Why would I connect with them on LinkedIn? So just follow them. Follow other like thought leaders and experts in whatever industry whatever space that you're in. If you're going to connect, maybe just connect with people that you work with, connect with some of the partners and customers that you have. But in the beginning, just focus on following people that are relevant to your industry, your space, people that, like, whoever your buyers are. If you sell to healthcare CIOs, like, who are they following? What type of content are they interested in? in. Follow those people and just observe for the first 1 or 2 months, like what types of content is out there that's relevant to your buyers. So then months 3 or 4, you start posting things on LinkedIn, but you're not posting your own original content. What you're posting is industry content. So if you're like in the sales space, maybe like Topo articles or CB Insights articles, Sales Hacker articles, HubSpot blog posts, videos that, maybe the Top 1 FM, podcast that Scott does, or, a different podcast, or whatever space you're in, things that are relevant, start posting content that is relevant to your buyers. And you can do a couple things. Not only are you posting this stuff on LinkedIn and maybe you tag some people that might find value in it, and then you can connect with those people, but you're also putting don't just post it, put like your own 2 cents about why that content is valuable, why you found it valuable. And then you're going to be seen as not just some person that's posting random stuff, you actually have an opinion about it. And then the people will start following you that are in your space. Maybe some of your prospects will see these posts and they'll be like, oh, wow, this is somebody who's actually contributing, some good discussion and some good insight about content that's relevant to me. It's not just some random SDR that's trying to get a meeting with me. So start posting that stuff. The other stuff you can start posting is prospect content. So if one of your prospects, like, you're selling to healthcare CIOs, maybe that prospect, that healthcare CIO, recently spoke at an event, or maybe they recently were, featured in a blog post, or they, posted, some content, share that, or they were featured in, a podcast or article, post that and tag them in it. So there's industry content, there's prospect content. Then finally, and this should be like the smallest part of it, is company content. You don't want to make all of your posts about your company and your product, but you can occasionally do that. So, use the content that your marketing team puts out, and don't just put it out there on LinkedIn, but wrap your context around it. Why do you think this case study or that video is valuable to your buyers? So that's what you can do. Like your first month 3, so month 1 and 2, you're just observing. Month 3 and 4, you start posting, but that's the kind of stuff you're posting. Then in month 5, 6, you can start actually posting original content, but don't only post original content. Most of the content you're posting, even in month 5 and 6, should be, industry content, prospect content, company content. But now, little by little, you're also adding in there, maybe 10% of the content you post is your own original content, because now that you've been with the company 5 or 6 months, you've had enough conversations with prospects, via calls, emails, LinkedIn, and you have enough of the business acumen on your space and industry you're in, you can start to actually formulate your own posts. Maybe do some videos or short form, long form posts on LinkedIn that might be relevant to your buyers. And some things that for original content that seems to drive more engagement is posts that have humor, or they have your vulnerable side. Don't just try to make it seem like everything is great. If you're able to use humor or some insight, what do you have for insight that is valuable to your audience that they might not know about? What should be keeping them up at night? Kind of formulate that in some posts. Controversy. Don't say anything that's going to get you fired, but I guarantee if you post 10 things on LinkedIn, the one thing that's a little bit controversial and is taking a stand on something is going to get the most engagement than the things that are just wishy-washy and not really taking a stand on something. So those are, and then also collaboration posts. Maybe there's somebody that you see as a thought leader in the space, and you want to like collaborate with them on a video and post that. Then they're going to share it with their audience, and you're going to share it. And it's not just you putting yourself out there saying all these things. It's you and another person kind of going back and forth, sharing some ideas. We'll get more engagement as well. So that's kind of the framework that I've built for getting started with social selling and building your brand.
That's fantastic. So we talked about the targeting, we talked about the messaging, we talked about building your personal brand and leveraging LinkedIn. Are there other kind of core segments of that playbook you're building?
Yeah, I mean, it's just, that's most of it. Then there's also metrics that are, kind of more specific to the company here and what you should be targeting, how to get ramped up as a BDR. Getting ramped up to the number of meetings that you should be hitting. But that's most of it. And then another part of it is like, where do you find leads? So you know what the target account is and who to reach out to at that account. Well, how do you find them? that's part of it as well. Just, different lists that we have for some of our BDRs to call on. But we've covered most of the playbook here.
Beautiful.
I'm
Beautiful.
Giving away a lot of the secrets.
That's what we do. So let's switch gears a little bit. I mean, we call this show Sales Success Stories. I feel like we should share a story. What's the story of like the most creative favorite thing you did to get a meeting, or maybe the hardest one, like the one that was just hell in a handbasket trying to get through, but you found a way and you made it happen?
Yeah. So one that's pretty cool is, a lot of times it takes some time. You really have to be strategic and do multi-channel, and it might take a few months. There's one where, I was connected to them on LinkedIn and had chatted with them on LinkedIn a little bit, but wasn't able to book the meeting yet. The process was delayed in booking the meeting because the prospect, they were on paternity leave. Their wife had a child. So what I did was, my girlfriend is very crafty. She's not in tech. She's not in sales, but she's very crafty and makes jewelry and stuff like that. One thing she does is if one of her friends or family member is pregnant, having a baby, she makes these like custom onesies with like, she'll do, graphic design and put some type of like image that's like a inside joke that she has with that person on the onesie. So I had her like take some onesies, and then for the prospect, I took their company logo and put that on the onesie, and then the LeadIQ logo I put just like in small, just like on the corner of the sleeve. So, and then I shipped that out to the prospect, and so that was part of the outreach, was that sending that onesie to them. I also did like a screen share video at one point. So, and also incorporated phone. Like I actually caught the guy, on his cell phone and had a quick conversation, kind of qualifying the potential opportunity. So it was delayed. The process was delayed, and then finally, once they were in the buying window, and they actually had to, I actually had to incorporate a couple other contacts, because a different contact, one of their account executives, posted something on LinkedIn about how they're evaluating different tools, and they're, looking for recommendations about different tools that they should use. So I literally screenshotted that post by one of their account executives and put that in an email to this prospect that I had already been working with and engaged with. Not only did I include that screenshot of that post where they were asking about different tool recommendations, but on the very first comment under that post was somebody recommending LeadIQ, and that comment had like 8 likes. So I made sure that part of it was also in the screenshot, and then sent that to the prospect, and then literally the next morning had an email back from him, ready to finally book the demo with us. So, and from the first call or email until they booked the demo was at least 5, if not 6 months. But you have to have patience and never stop adding value. At no point was I just checking in or touching base or hey Bob, did you get my email or something like that. Like every time I reached out to them, I was adding value.
Yeah. Well, I think you can almost look at, go get the emails from one of your own executives, and all of the stuff that you see over and over and over again, never do any of that. And you'll probably be really well served.
Yep, exactly.
So Jeremy, what motivates all of this? Like what motivates you? How do you think about motivation?
Yeah, I mean, I really am just motivated to do the best I can, and just be as successful as I can, and I mean, obviously money is part of it. Like anybody that's in sales, they want to make money. They want to be able to, afford things that they need. Money is part of it, but I think also something that drives pretty much all salespeople that most of them don't like talking about. It's kind of like this hush hush thing is ego. And, most salespeople do that. That is a big part of the drive is ego, and being on podcasts like this, winning that SDR of the Year award, it motivates me. It drives me. It like getting that kind of recognition, being a team lead, that motivates me. And also I'm always just like, looking for what's next. As far as sales is always changing, technology is always changing. What works today did not work 6 months ago. What works today is not going to work 6 months from now. So that also motivates me. So it's partly the ego drive and sense and feeling of accomplishment, but also it's like, okay, like, yeah, I'm doing pretty good in my role, like what I'm doing right now. Well, what about a year from now when literally everything that I'm doing to be successful is not going to work? Like, always being able to stay ahead of the curve and network with people, going to industry like networking events to talk to people and exchange ideas and stay on the up and up with what's changing, and checking out different posts on LinkedIn and reading different books and stuff to always stay ahead of what's next, so you don't fall behind.
Yeah, that's awesome. Well, and obviously we're going to break it right now. I mean, now after everybody listens to this, everybody's going to be mailing onesies. Just not going to work anymore.
Exactly. Yeah, and like all these videos that I'm doing, like right now, calling prospects on their cell phone is working because not a lot of people are doing it. And that's one of the things that LeadIQ is able to do, is get cell phone number data for people. So that's working. And sending these videos to people, where I'm doing guitar videos and rap songs, that's working because not a lot of people are doing it. Well, and sending onesies and stuff and direct mail, like some of this creative out of the box stuff, but 6-12 months from now, some of this stuff will work, some of it won't. You got to just stay up and up.
Well, you know what, though? I thought that. I've been saying that for 2 years and having a lot of conversations with Tyler Lessard, who is VP of Marketing over at Vidyard. And my original impression was the same as you, right? Like, this is awesome. This is going to be great for like a year, and then everybody is going to be doing it. But you know what's different about that tool in particular, and I think there's a couple of others sort of in that genre.
Yep.
It's not, you can't scale it, which is good, right? It takes effort. People actually have to work at it and be human and put some personality into it. And you can't send a Vidyard Go video to 300 people in a day or 1,000 people in a day. It's not possible unless it's the same one and it's just generic, and that's going to kind of come apart. So I think a lot of the things that you're talking about, a lot of things that you're doing, going back to that quality trumps quantity, if you do it in this way, like, that never gets old. That's never going to break because not everybody is willing to do the work to do it.
Yep, exactly. And same thing with like, direct mail, where we sent like a Beatles album to a prospect, a Beatles vinyl, and she responded back like, "Wow, that's pretty cool." Like, she actually said, "I'm trying to get my team to do more personalized stuff like that." It's going to resonate with people. It's going to help stand out from the noise because you're actually taking the time to be a little bit more personalized and thoughtful with the outreach. You can kind of do with video, with Vidyard, you can kind of record one video and then just, you could send it to like 300 people, but, I just think it wouldn't work as good. It's just the same thing as like if you write a template, if you just put, hey, and you do a mail merge. So you just put the prospect, you just put name, and then it inserts their name. And, we do blah, blah, blah. If you're just kind of, segmenting a list and then just kind of sending that email out to 300 people, like it just doesn't, it hasn't worked for me, being able to do that. I've tried it. And then the reply rates, what we've seen is actually more people when you do that and you just kind of blast out that same message in bulk to like 100 plus people. What I've seen as a trend is more people are unsubscribing than replying. So, you send something, in bulk to like 200 people, you're going to get like, say you get a reply rate of like 3 or 4%. That are actually replying. Well, most of those are going to be not positive replies. They're going to be people saying, unsubscribe me or take me off your list or something. But, if that's 3 or 4%, like 7 or 8% of those are going to be people that are clicking unsubscribe. They're like, then once they unsubscribe or they mark it as spam or something, then you're not going to be able to have any of your emails delivered to that person at all anymore. So, SalesLoft did just posted something on LinkedIn the other day about how just something as small as like customizing the subject line of the email makes it, I think, like they put like 5 times more likely to get a response. So, whether it's mentioning in the subject line a mutual connection that you have, or a post that they made on LinkedIn, or one thing that I do sometimes for subject line, if it's somebody who has been with their current company for a long time, I'll put congrats on, I just did this earlier today. I went on their LinkedIn. They've been with the company for 6 years, which these days, that's like an eternity. You know, people change jobs so frequently these days. Literally, my subject line was, congrats on 6 years at insert company. You know, I'm not going to say the name of the company, but I put the name of the company and then an exclamation point. You know, like I wouldn't be able to, because I'm customizing the number of years they've been there and the name of the company. Like I wouldn't be able to send that same thing to 100 people. You know, or sometimes I'll leave the subject line blank because not a lot of people do that either. But yeah, I mean, personalizing as much as you can. That way, it's not going to look like spam. When they can tell, people are getting more accustomed to seeing all these templates. They can tell what a template is, and if it looks like something that could have been sent to 100 other people, they're just not going to respond.
Yeah, for sure. So maybe it's that, maybe it's something different. But what do you find to be the hardest part of sales today?
Yeah, I mean, for my company at least, it's, you know, being able to kind of differentiate from some of our competitors. We're in a pretty competitive space. Two competitors in particular that, you know, like 80-90% of the people that I reach out to are using one of them, if not both of them. You know, so for my company in particular, that's the number one challenge, is being able to differentiate from those two companies. Overall, I mean, I would think it's just because buyers are so busy, and like I was saying, you know, they have so many different priorities and projects going on at one time, and you know, they being able to actually get them to want to do that project, you know, evaluate your product. Why would they evaluate that instead of the other 50 things that are on their plate? You know, it's so easy for them to just stay with the status quo. You know, they could just, you know, unless the impact isn't great enough, you know, unless the impact on, you know, their future state with your product, they're not able to see how that future state with your product is. You know, if they don't see it being that much different than what it is today with the status quo, then they're just going to stay with it because they're busy. You know, they don't have time to evaluate, you know, 20 different things at the same time. I think that's the biggest challenge right now.
Yeah, for sure. Well, let's go into. I've been having so much fun digging into all the prospecting, your playbook, and everything else. I've ditched most of the other stuff that people like to hear about, just in terms of the habits and routines, the way that you're sort of managing through everything. And I know you've listened to the show, so just walk me through. You know, what's a typical day, right? The alarm goes off. What happens, start to finish?
Yeah, so the first thing that I do is I look at my calendar, my Google Calendar, and I try to figure out what my day is going to be like. As an SDR, literally, you know, as other people that are SDRs or SDR managers, you know that, you know, you don't have a lot of meetings. Like people that are manager, directors, VPs, like their whole calendar is just meetings. You know, they just go from one meeting to another or whatever. They have one-on-ones with their reps. Like literally an SDR's calendar, it should be, you know, unless they have pointless meetings, literally 100 from, you know, 8 a.m. to 5 p.m., whatever, their entire day is prospecting. That's it. That's their day, is prospecting. So that's, you know, and then you can kind of dive deeper, obviously, and get more granular as far as, okay, what are you actually doing when you're prospecting? But the first thing I do when I come in is I look at my calendar, because yes, 100% of my time when I'm in the office is prospecting, but I do like to sit in on a lot of the demos that I book. So I think that's a very good idea for a lot of SDRs out there. When you book a demo, you should be on that demo and do a handoff at the beginning of the call, you know, and say, hey, prospect, you know, thanks for making the time to talk to us. You know, based on our conversation yesterday about XYZ, you know, we could potentially help your team fill XYZ gap and, you know, drive XYZ results. And on with us is so-and-so, my account executive, that'll take it from here, you know, and I'll just kind of do that handoff in the beginning of the call. So I like to be on a lot of the demos that I book. So that's going to, when I look at my calendar, I'm looking at, okay, there's a demo at 10, there's a demo at 3, and there's a demo at 4. So that kind of gives me an idea of, I want to be on those 3 calls. That's I look at my calendar to figure out what calls I want to be on. But B, I send a really quick reminder to each of those prospects. You know, so if I have 3 demos that are going to be happening that day that I already booked, I just go into my Google Calendar, click on the invite, and then hit email. You can just from the invite email that prospect so that it's attaching that email to that invite so they can see it's an invite that's on their calendar. They accepted it. And I just literally all I put is, you know, Bob, comma, you know, look forward to our call at 3:00 Pacific, Jeremy. That's all it says. And I hit send. I'm not saying confirming our call because that kind of gives them out. They can just reply and be like, oh, it doesn't work for me anymore. I don't want them to, get out of it and not take the demo. But I'm just kind of giving them a reminder so that it increases the chances that they actually show up. So that's what I do very first thing in the morning. Check my calendar, figure out what calls I want to be on, and then send those reminders so that the demos that I booked that day actually show up. And then from there, it's prospecting. And I just figure out, okay, I look into SalesLoft and figure out one sales hack I like to do very first thing in the day is come into the office maybe like half hour or an hour early, bang out 15, maybe 20 really good personalized emails to prospects. I'll bang out like 15, 20 of them first thing in the morning, bright and early. And then what I'll do is, as people listening to this that use tools like SalesLoft, Outreach, Yesware, they all know the way it works. You get notifications. There's like a little ticker. It'll tell you when people are opening and reading your emails. So throughout the day, as those 20 people that I just emailed the first thing in the morning, throughout the day, as those 20 people start opening the email, SalesLoft will tell me, and then I just click their name, and then I click dial. And I have my headphones. We don't have desk phones here, and I just have a headset that plugs into my laptop, and then, SalesLoft has a dialer, and then using LeadIQ, I'm able to get anybody's cell phone number. So I just click the dial, and then I have a conversation, and I use that as a trigger to call them because, when it says that they're viewing the email, because they have the email right in front of them that I sent them. They're either on their phone looking at the email and I'm calling their cell phone, or they're on their computer looking at my email and then they're going to answer. So the email's out there in front of them. It's fresh. So when I say it's Jeremy at LeadIQ, like they're not going to be like, wait, who's that? Like, what are you calling about? Like they're looking at the email that I sent them. So they have that context already. And also they're more likely to answer the phone since they're, viewing the email. They're right next to their computer. They're right next to their phone. So that's one thing I do is throughout the day, I'll look at who's opening the emails, pick up the phone, call them right when I see that notification that they're viewing the email. And then at the end of the day, maybe like the last 30, 60 minutes, any of those 20 people that didn't read my email, I'll just bang out like 5 or 10 more calls at the very end of the day and call those people. So then I've called and emailed all those people. So that's kind of one thing that I do throughout the day.
And what's a typical kind of start and finish? I know you mentioned earlier you were in the office till 10:30. I assume that's not typical. What's an average day for you?
Oh, it is. I work from 6 a.m. No, I'm just kidding. I come in around 8:30, maybe 9 o'clock most days, and then I stay until usually at least 6, if not 6:30, maybe 7, sometimes till 7:30. I mean, yesterday was until 10:30, sometimes until 8, 8:30, but most of the time I leave by like 6 or 6:30, maybe 7 at the latest, but then there's every now and then days where I'll stay until 8 or 9. I don't have kids, and my girlfriend works second shift, so she works until 11 o'clock at night, and like I said, it's not really work for me. It's fun. It's more like a hobby. So I stay pretty late, and I find that in order to be successful as a BDR, you have to put in a little bit more time. You can't just put in, like 9 to 5 hours and then you take an hour-long lunch. So then that's only 7 hours of working, because it's tough to actually get that balance between quality number of outreach. Like if you're putting in all this personalization and stuff that I'm doing and making videos and all this stuff, like doing all this, like it's lower volume. So, if you're only working 7 hours a day or 8 hours a day doing that type of lower volume, you're only going to reach out to like 10 people a day, 15 people a day. And then that's not enough people. So, or you're going to kind of just blast people and just kind of do these mail merges and send out templates if you're able to get the volume up and still only work 8 hours a day. So I think you to be successful and have that balance of achieving both the quantity and the quality, you have to it's just the reality of being an SDR. I think most successful SDRs aren't just working 8 hours a day. They're putting in they're working 45, maybe 50, maybe even 55. I don't want to work more than 55 hours and kind of burn myself out, but somewhere in that range in order to be a little bit more successful.
Sure. Yeah. I feel like I don't know that there's anybody that's really successful at anything that only works an 8 hour day. I joke that, hard work is a given if you want to be great at sales, and it's not an either or of working smart or working hard, right? I'm yet to talk to somebody on the show who's just like so dialed in and figured this out and so smart that they're number one and they work 3-4 hours a day. Like that, If somebody knows that person, please get in touch with me. I would love to figure that out. But I think at the end of the day, it's a combo, right? You got to do the hard work, but you got to be smart about it too, right? Like if you're just an idiot and you're working your butt off, that doesn't necessarily mean that you're getting great results if all you're doing is, loading up your spam cannon and hoping that works.
Yeah, exactly. And I think the only person that works less than 40 hours, Jill Conrath wrote the book More Sales, Less Time, a good book that I recommend. I'm still trying to put into practice a lot of the stuff that she talks about in there. She says she only works like 35 or 36 hours a week. But I mean, that's Jill Conrath, I mean, she's, arguably the most well-known salesperson in the world, so she only works 35, 36 hours a week because over the past 30 years, she's built up herself. She's put in a lot of time to build herself up and be really successful in sales so that now, she doesn't really have to do a lot of cold calling. Like, she's Jill Conrath. Everybody knows who she is. But if you're not Jill Conrath, you got to be able to you'd have to be willing to put some more time in.
Yeah. Step 1, become Jill Conrath. Step 2, work 36 hours a week.
Exactly. Yeah.
So, Jeremy, any other habits or routines that are really core to the way that you function?
It's just really learning as much as you can and putting yourself in the position of the buyer, in your industry. And, if you sell to, the automotive industry, becoming an expert on that industry and speaking their language, the conversational, informal language that I use might not work if I was selling to, insurance company, like if I was selling to CFOs at an insurance companies. Just know your buyer is really the most important thing, and not just know your buyer, but figure out what their day is like, what their job is like, what their pain points are and challenges, and just try to learn that stuff as much as you can. If you don't know it when you first start at a job, you're not going to just start at a job and already know all that stuff. Ask your manager. If it's a really technical product, lean really heavily on the product team and your solutions architects or sales engineers, just to always keep getting that knowledge that you need, and iterate. Always be figuring out, okay, here's what I'm saying, here's what my targeting and my messaging is like, and here's what I'm saying, and here's what's working. When I say these things, it's working. When I say these things, it's not working. Always be trying to, figure out what's working, what's not working, and then double down on the things that are working, and then stop doing the things that aren't working.
Yeah. So along those lines, what is your information diet? What are you reading? What are you listening to? What are you watching, and when? Where does that fit into your day?
Yeah. So I live on LinkedIn. I'm always on LinkedIn, and it's in LinkedIn is whatever you make it to be. Who you follow, their algorithm is going to show in your feed it's going to show more of the things that you're engaging with. So, if you like a piece of content, like it or comment, share it, and then you're going to see more stuff like that. If you don't like it, then, don't engage with that post. And, the people that you find interesting that are thought leaders or expert in your space, follow them, and then, maybe connect with them and start engaging with their content, and if you're engaging with content that's going to make you smarter and better your job, and you're connecting, following with people that are smarter than you and that are in your space you can learn from, LinkedIn is a good place to learn all that stuff. Podcasts, I listen to a lot of podcasts. We have our own podcast, obviously, LeadIQ. I listen to yours. When I was at my last job, Navisite, the podcast that helped me out a lot that I highly recommend, if anybody listening sells to IT people, if you sell to IT, you should be listening to CXO Talk, cxotalk.com. It is literally the number one reason why I was crushing my quota as a BDR when I was at Navisite. The number one reason, because I was selling to IT people and CIOs, IT directors, IT infrastructure managers. It's what the hell do I know about those people and what they do and what their job is like and their pain points are like? These people have been doing IT for 20 years. They went to school for it. I've never had an IT job before, and I didn't go to school for IT. So how can I have a call or an email that's going to add value to them and get them to respond and want to book a meeting? So watching that podcast was the number one reason why I was able to do that, because they interview CIOs. They interview these IT leaders that are building these data centers and, doing these data center moves and doing these digital transformations and modernizing their legacy applications and all this stuff. So that was really big for me to just, so like if you're selling to IT, watch that podcast. If you're selling to marketing, maybe watch the Flip My Funnel podcast that Ingram from Terminus does. Just learn as much as you can. So in the sales space, I've gotten a lot of value from events. Going to events, and then you can see the speakers that speak at those events. And then that way, some of these people that you're connecting with and following on LinkedIn, like Trish Bertuzzi or John Barrows, Lori Richardson, you can go to an event like Dreamforce or, Enterprise Sales Forum puts on different events regionally across the country, and AISP. Going to these events, you can actually meet these people in person and actually build more of a relationship and connection that way by actually meeting them in person. And then they'll be more willing to help you out and, and give you referrals and stuff like that. So that's also part of what I do is going to a lot of in-person events.
Yeah. Just a litany of greatness. You're blowing up my show notes. So my poor guy who's putting together the show notes, I'm going to have to pay him extra to bring this together. So guys, make sure you go to top1.fm/55. We're going to have so much good stuff in there. Speaking of so much good stuff, let's talk about kind of the tools and apps that you're using. So we've already talked about LeadIQ. We've talked about Vidyard Go Video and SalesLoft. What else is in your arsenal that you can't live without? LinkedIn, of course.
Yep. So those are the main ones, LinkedIn, Sales Navigator. The main reason why I like Sales Navigator instead of just the free version of LinkedIn, I already kind of mentioned that one thing that triggers me to reach out to a potential prospect is if they viewed my LinkedIn profile. So I literally click that button and view that page like 3 times a day. That page on LinkedIn that says who viewed your LinkedIn profile. If you don't have Sales Navigator, it limits it. You're only able to see like the last 2 or 3 people that viewed your profile. And then like if it's 6 hours later, you're not able to see somebody that viewed you from yesterday. But on Sales Navigator, you can see all the way back literally anybody that's viewed your profile in the last 90 days. So that's really the biggest, thing on Sales Navigator. I don't send too many in-mails, but being able to send in-mails in addition to email and calling is helpful. So Sales Navigator is something that I leverage a lot as well. Cloud App is an app that helps with some of the screenshots. So I'll take a screenshot, and then with Cloud App, you're able to kind of blur out the person's name or maybe kind of edit it, make that screenshot look better. So when you send it to a prospect, it looks a little bit more polished when you send it to them. So Cloud App is another good one. But yeah, those are definitely the main ones. LeadIQ and Vidyard, LinkedIn Sales Navigator, SalesLoft, all contribute to the success.
Beautiful. Well, a little hack here. So if you use an iPhone and to the left of the home screen, there's widgets you can add. There is a LinkedIn Who's Viewed My Profile widget if you use Sales Navigator. So you can add that. And now you don't even have to go into that because I don't know, it feels like it's hard to find that page on LinkedIn for whatever reason. So I find myself using it on there quite a bit.
Yeah, and another app I use a lot is Slack. So, one thing that I do a lot on Slack is I don't even know like how many people, do this feature. I think some people I've talked to about it didn't even know that you could do it. I mean, it's probably not that like of a hidden thing, but when you have on Slack like for your company, you can have one-on-one conversations, one-on-one chat with different people within your company, or you can have a chat with yourself. And that might seem weird, like talking to yourself, but I use it as like note to self type of thing, like instead of having Post-it notes all over the place, all over my cubicle with all these Post-it notes, like call Bob at XYZ company. I'll just kind of put little notes in my personal, like one-to-one, my own like Slack to myself. So the biggest use case for that I do it a lot is like at trade shows and events. So like if I'm at Dreamforce, which I was just a couple weeks ago, all these people, how are you going to know A, who you talk to, and B, what you talk to them about? I posted a video about this on LinkedIn. Like you should always have that context and that personalization when you're reaching out to somebody like that you talked to at a trade show or event. They came to your booth, or maybe you talked to them at the happy hour or whatever. Like they gave you their card, but you're going to get back from that trade show and you're going to have these cards and you're going to be like, all right, I don't even know what I talked about with each of these people. So what I do is I just take out my phone right after I have that conversation, as I'm walking away from that conversation, walking towards what the next conversation might be at that event, just pull up Slack. I click on my personal message to myself and just put, the name of the person that I talked to, what I talked to them about, and then what maybe the next steps are that, I should do with that person. And then I hit send and I hit save. And then that night when I go home or when I get back from the event, I have all of that right there that I can follow up on.
Awesome. Well, speaking of weird, I always like to ask if there's something that you believe or that you do that the average sales professional would think is crazy.
Good question. I mean, I guess like one thing would be they probably think I'd be crazy for staying in the office until 10:30 at night. and then also I think a lot of people are like they're like, wow, no way. Like you're making these videos where you're doing freestyle rap songs and playing guitars for people, and so that that is also a little bit out there and different, as well as like the suit that I wore at Dreamforce. Like I have this flamingo suit that is like, looks like out of a movie or something, like a Jim Carrey movie or something, like, and I wore it at Dreamforce just because like there's 125,000 people at Dreamforce. How am I going to stand out from the crowd a little bit? So, one thing I'd like to do at events is wear a crazy, wacky suit that is going to stand out from everybody there. So that, they're going to remember, oh, that was that guy wearing that flamingo suit. So just kind of doing stuff like that. When you go to a trade show or an event, like wear something that is going to be memorable, for everybody there is going to remember that guy wearing the flamingo suit. Or, doing videos where, you're playing guitars and you're not even holding the guitar the right way. But so stuff like that, I would say, is probably a little bit out there.
That's fantastic. That one more picture we're going to add to the show notes. I'm going to build you a laundry list of stuff I'll have to follow up with you on to get that all, to get that all built. Fortunately, we're a little ahead of schedule, so I'll have time to make it all happen. This is going to be very worthwhile. You're going to want to visit that page. It'll be worth it, I promise. What about the flip side? Is there something that the average sales professional or is just part of the sales dogma these days that you think is crazy?
Yeah, I mean, I think like one thing I kind of touched on is just this notion that the SDR, BDR role is a low-level, entry-level role that, should be just kids out of college. You do it, and then hopefully you move on to be an AE. I mean, I just think that notion is a little bit, not correct. Like, it's just different skill sets. And I think, it's changing to the point where, a lot of people are posting stuff like, hey, the hardest part of the sale is actually finding the deal, like actually sourcing that opportunity and getting that initial engagement from that prospect and getting that, Fortune 500 company to like want to book a meeting with you and take 30 minutes out of their busy day. Like time is the most valuable thing that people have. And if they're willing to take 30 minutes out of their day to talk to somebody who, they have no idea before you called them, they had no idea who you or your company were, but you were able to spark their interest enough for them to take 30 minutes out of their time. A lot of people, it seems like more and more these days are saying, hey, that's actually the hardest, most valuable part of the sales process. So, there's still a lot of people that kind of look down on the SDR role. Other than that, I mean, I think a lot of people, are saying a lot of stuff about, oh, cold calling is dead or social selling is dead and doesn't work. I think people that are, saying those types of things, like do whatever works for, your industry and your buyer. Like if your buyers aren't on LinkedIn, then don't use LinkedIn. If your buyers aren't answering cold calls, then don't use cold calls. Like, whatever works for your industry and your buyer, like rule of thumb, like go to your company. And when you get hired, whoever the top sales rep is at that company, don't just be them, because you might not have all the same skills and qualities that person has, but try to like pick some stuff up. Be like, okay, the top sales rep of my company is doing, these 5 things really well. And this is how they're hitting their number, and if they're making cold calls, don't say cold calling is dead. Like pick up the phone. Maybe you're not very good at cold calls, see if you can try to work on it and get better at it. So that's another thing that I think a lot of people are trying to say that isn't really true, in my opinion.
Yeah, nice. Well, here's something that I think you're probably been talking about a lot as you start to build your team. What's the advice that you have for somebody that's just getting into a sales career? Maybe they're walking into their first SDR role. What would you suggest that they do to build a really good foundation for themselves? Besides, I mean, you already laid a great foundation on kind of the personal branding piece, but what else?
Yeah, I mean, I think if you're getting started as an SDR, don't worry so much in the beginning about like posting stuff on LinkedIn and building your brand and stuff. First couple months, just observe what's on LinkedIn, observe what people are posting, and more importantly, If you're starting off as an SDR, number one is make it more about the buyer than you. Try to learn about your buyer, learn about what their pain points are and challenges, but also, just try to get good in the beginning at calls and emails. Being able to get good on the phone, get comfortable having a conversation with somebody who doesn't know who the hell you are, with a stranger, and being able to have a good conversation, be concise, right to the point, be able to execute, a solid cold call, and be able to book a meeting, in a less than a 1 or 2 minute call, and then get the basics down of emails, writing skills. A lot of people don't have great writing skills. Maybe you need to improve your writing skills and, understand the language and, how to, what to say to these buyers, that, what types of subject lines to use, and just get the basics down. Understand your buyer and get good at calls and emails first. Just try to get that foundation in your first couple months.
So I love that piece about getting to know your buyer. I'm thinking back to, and I reference this a lot. I think back to a conversation that I had here on the podcast. We'll put another thing in the show notes. This is an interview I did with Colin Spector. And so Colin was at Namely, still is at Namely, and progressed all the way through the ranks. So he was the top SDR, he was the top AE, he was leading a team. I think he's going back and picking up a bag again. And that the thing that he did that really struck me is he spent so much time in the beginning just trying to get inside the head of the buyer. And I feel like you cannot have too many conversations with your prospect. Doesn't sound right because that's what we're trying to do. But I'll say even customers, right? Sure. Find ways to get access to your customers and have conversations with them and just get into their skin, right? Mm-hmm. You could almost run my interview playbook, and I'm happy to send it to you if you want to email me, scott@top1.fm. I'll send you my interview questions because I think you can almost adapt these. And it's just getting into like, how do you structure your day? What do you worry about? And as it relates to your solution, understanding what they use today, or if they are an existing customer, like, why did you buy this? Like, what were you trying to fix? Like, what was it like before? Because when somebody buys your solution, there's an issue there, right? Like, we don't just do this for fun. We don't buy stuff for fun. Like, we're always trying to improve something, fix something, or whatever it is, right? Mm-hmm. So the better you can understand all of those things and what's important in their world, then you can communicate with them in a such more meaningful way that's from their perspective, not yours, because they don't give a crap about your perspective. And that's why I think you're screenshotting their stuff that's so incredibly powerful. It's so no-brainer, but that's what they like the most.
Yep. People like to hear their name. They like, they're more focused on themselves. They're more focused. They care more about themselves. And that's why, like, when I do in emails, one small little hack that I do is I don't, like, 99% of SDRs, when they send an email to a prospect, they put the prospect name at the top, but that's it. That's the only place in that email that prospect's name happens. And I always put it in the call to action. So at the end of the email, instead of saying, "Is this of interest to you?" ? Or, "Are you free next Tuesday to discuss this?" ? I'll put that prospect's name at the end. "Is this of interest to you, Sam?" Or, "Are you free next week to discuss this, Sam?" So I'm putting their name. It's something small, but having their name in a second place is going to make it, it's going to be in their head. They're thinking, oh, this is about me. This isn't, and then it's going to look less like a template, because if you do all these mail merges and templates with all these bots blasting out emails, it's only going to have their name at the top. And the other thing I do with their name, a lot of people, not always, but a lot of names, it's somebody like Jennifer or Daniel or Elizabeth, a name that it could be Elizabeth or it could be Beth. It could be Jennifer, it could be Jen. It could be Daniel, it could be Dan. I scroll to the bottom of the person's LinkedIn profile and I look at their recommendations and I see what people who are actually in their network, people they've worked with before, what do they call them? Do they call him Bob or do they call him Robert? The mail merge, if you use some type of mail merge thing, it's just going to take their the whatever name is at the top of their LinkedIn profile, or whatever name is in your database. But oftentimes it might say Daniel on their LinkedIn profile, but you scroll down to their recommendations and everybody that recommended them calls them Dan. So, immediately if you put Dan in their cold email, they're going to be like, okay, immediately psychologically, this is a stranger. They don't know who I am. You put Dan, it might be more likely to be like, have some familiarity there. Just like when I call somebody on a cold call, and when they say, oftentimes I'm calling people on their cell phone because you get a 3x higher connect rate than calling desk phones, that a lot of companies don't have desk phones anymore. So when I call them on their cell phone, oftentimes, as opposed to a direct line on their desk, they might answer and be like, Bob here. Then immediately you have the right person on the phone. You know it's Bob. You can go into your pitch. But with a cell phone, usually people answer the phone, they just say, hello. What 90% of sales reps do, if the prospect just says hello, they're going to say, this is Jeremy at LeadIQ. Is this Bob? And then immediately psychologically the prospect's thinking, oh God, it's a cold call. They don't even know who I am. How quickly can I get this person off the phone? I assume that I have the right person. So they say hello, and I just go right in and I say, hey Bob, it's Jeremy. I know I'm an interruption to your day. Is it cool if I take, under 30 seconds, say the reason for my call? I assume it's that person. And, so that it's, having more familiarity and making it more about the prospect.
Love it. Love it. Love it. Now, I also like to ask, usually I ask from the perspective of the advice that you would give to somebody that's good and trying to get to great. Let me ask it differently for you. And that would be, what advice would you give to somebody that's feeling stuck in an SDR role?
Yeah. I mean, I think part of it is like, they might feel stuck because they might be thinking, oh, geez, I've been an SDR for 6 months or 12 months. Like, how quickly can I get promoted? Well, the better question to ask is, what skills do I have? Are my skills best suited for SDR? Are my skills and capabilities, not just your skills, but what do you want to do? Like, what motivates you? What like for me, I stay at work till 10:30 at night. Like prospecting, it's not even like a job. I enjoy doing it. I have a passion for it. But what are they passionate about? Like what do they think that they would rather be good at? Would they be better at marketing and enjoy marketing better? So it's like, what are you good at and what would you enjoy doing? Would it be marketing instead? Would it be customer success? Would it be maybe SDR at a different company? Would it be an account executive? Maybe a sales manager? So always think about A, what am I good at? Or B, what would I be happiest doing? And where both of those intersect is what you should then go for it. And maybe it's working at a different department at your company. Maybe it's being an SDR, but just an SDR at a different company because maybe that company, doesn't have good culture or they're not motivating you enough, doesn't have the right comp plan. But, that's what I would say. Awesome.
Jeremy, what is it that you would want to know about the top SDRs in other organizations?
Yeah, I mean, I guess I would probably try to figure out, what are they doing to fill the gap where like my number one weakness is like being able to structure things more effectively and being able to know exactly who they should reach out to when, because I kind of just wing it. Like I kind of just am like, oh, this is a really good account that I know I've been trying to break into for a while. I haven't reached out to them in a few days. Why don't I, call them or email them? Or, this person viewed my profile. I'll reach out to them. Or, this person liked my LinkedIn post. I'll reach out to them. I kind of just wing it and don't have as much of a structure for, it's not like this process that is just nailed down, where I'm like a machine just going through my day and then never missing a follow-up because like sometimes, there's a really good prospect where I sent a really good email to them that maybe they didn't respond to that one. And then maybe 3-4 weeks or even 3 months goes by. And I'm like, oh, geez, I totally forgot. I never followed up with that person because maybe it's I need to be more regimented with using SalesLoft or Outreach, those types of tools to keep me on track and on a structure. But that's the thing where, I could definitely get better at that. So I'm sure there's other SDRs out there that, have a more defined process and are more structured with what they're doing. But I feel like if they're too structured with that stuff, then maybe the targeting and the messaging might not be as good because like when I'm winging it, like I kind of, if I'm doing a cadence for somebody, if I'm on like if I've done 3 or 4 or 5 emails for somebody, I'm kind of customizing each step along the way, each of those 5. So if that's like the 5th email that I sent somebody and it's day 18, well, I'm sending a certain email based on something that I saw, on LinkedIn or something that day, or, so if I wouldn't have been able to really plan out that cadence 3 weeks in advance, like a lot of reps, they have these pre-built cadences, they drop people in, and everybody's getting that same cadence. So, some of the times my process of figuring out who I should call, an email when, and then at what point am I going to follow up with them again, that piece sometimes could definitely be more structured and regimented. And that's something that I'd like to, see what other top reps are doing.
Got it. Cool. And if somebody has a great answer to that, I'm sure they can reach out to you on LinkedIn, right?
Definitely. Just look me up, Jeremy Leveille on LinkedIn. You can find me there.
One more link in the show notes, people. So, Jeremy, before we wrap this up, I just want to ask we've covered a ton of ground. You had shared knowledge bomb after knowledge bomb. This has been a blast. Is there anything else that you really wanted to make sure that you shared or got across in our time today?
No, yeah. I mean, I think we covered pretty much everything, I mean, I think it's just stay humble, don't think that you know everything, but at the same time, you have to have confidence as well. You have to have confidence, be able to have confidence in your product and in yourself, but not so much confidence that comes across as too cocky or anything. And if you don't have enough confidence in your product and you don't really know, why would people buy from us? What really is the value? Ask your manager, ask your customers, ask, the solutions architects, sales engineers, your product managers, be able to dive into the case studies that you have and really figure out what actual value do we really have? Why are people buying from us? Figure that out and then really make that as granular and specific. Like I said, people are so busy, that they're getting a million different emails from a million different people all the time. Don't beat around the bush. Be very direct and specific. Beat them over the head with it. Here's why you should take a meeting with me. And I think that's a big thing people take away from it.
Great stuff. And since I'm trying to build the most epic set of show notes ever, I think it would be valuable here to also call out if you are in sales development and this conversation has really intrigued you and you want to kind of take this further, David Dulany, the Sales Development Podcast, the Sales Development Conference, where obviously Jeremy was named the SDR of the year. He's got some really, really great stuff going. Obviously, we already talked about at the top of the show, the prospecting podcast that Ryan runs for LeadIQ, just a ton of great stuff there. So Jeremy, the way I always like to try and wrap this up, if we've talked about so many great things, what would you have the listener do over the course of the next 2 weeks to improve themselves and improve their prospecting or their meeting setting abilities?
Yeah, I mean, I would say, just like write stuff down that, what do you know, like outline it, put it in like notebook or, Google Docs or something, have an outline of, who like you're targeting, who is your buyer, who is your ideal customer profile, and then the buyer personas at that company. You got to really know that stuff front and back, know your targeting and okay, so those are the accounts, those are the leads. How would you find those people? Where are you going to find them? Where are you going to get these leads from? And then what is your messaging? Like, what does good messaging look like? Go through your emails and figure out, what am I saying when people are responding positively to my emails? What am I saying when people are responding negatively to my emails? And just spend some time. Like, even obviously you don't want to spend all day because then you're not going to be able to you're not actually calling and emailing people. But just take a little bit at a time and, try doing some self-assessing on your own. But then, take this document that you're building and putting together, this document of, then have a document that's all about your buyer, and what are their challenges? What are their pain points? Why do they buy from us? Put this stuff together and then, do it on your own and then go to your manager and be like, hey, I put together this document, that I thought might help me, be more successful, and email it to them and review it with them. And I think that would be a good starting place.
Love it. Jeremy, this has been totally incredible. I can't wait to share this and allow everyone to listen. If you're still here with us, I hope you got just a tremendous amount of value. Again, go check out all of the show notes that we've pulled together with the pictures and the video examples and everything else at top1.fm/55. And while you're there, if you haven't already, please pick up a copy of the book or better yet, get it on audio. It sounds absolutely amazing. You can find all of those links at top1.fm/book. Jeremy, thank you.
Thank you so much for having me on, Scott. I'm definitely going to check out your book. And yeah, I appreciate you having me on. Have a great day. Good talking to you.
Thanks for listening to the Sales Success Stories podcast. To be sure you never miss an episode, and for an invitation to our sales success community powered by Influitive, subscribe to our newsletter at top1.fm.